I recently posted in a vintage group for Hondas that I've started doing some plating of my own, some zinc plating. Gone through a number of different trials and errors on it and had a little bit of luck recently, and I wanted to share it. The problem I had initially was that I was following some information online. Some of it's not particularly good, and I sort of wanted to straighten it out, also help others so they don't have to go through the same stuff that I did, and hopefully end up with something they can deal with. So what I'm working on right now is a Honda VF 1000R. I recently did a restoration on a Honda VF 1000F Interceptor. So this is currently what the 1000R looks like. That's the 1000F, which was recently done. There's a few parts kicking around for the 1000R over there, but obviously it's a little bit crowded in here. It's just a two-car garage and trying to do with what I have. So let me just show you how it's done. Anyways, so what I'm going to start with is on the rear set. I'll take a look here. Sorry, it's the right side set for the brake, for the operator's controls, foot controls. And there's a number of different parts. So you have some springs. This holds the brake switch. Some other screws, different condition for each one. Part of the wear piece, some more screws. So the first thing I'm going to do with these, I'm going to clean them up. And what I found the best for some small batches of parts, I just have a little bit of arsol in a container here. And I also have an ultrasonic cleaner, which helps, but whatever you do, you have to get rid of any oils or greases which are on the parts. Got a bunch of washers as well, some different springs. Glass jars work best in an ultrasonic cleaner because the plastic jars will tend to absorb the ultrasonic sound waves as it goes through. But I'm going to run this through the ultrasonic cleaner for a little bit, and then I'll come back to showing you what we have to do after that. So this is 10 minutes in the ultrasound, or ultrasonic cleaner. It does a good job. The nice thing about arsol is it works very well for grease and oil and stuff. So this is just what I use. Feel free to use whatever you want, but the important thing is that all the oil and grease have to be gone from the parts, or the acid is not going to work because it won't cut through any oils or greases. It won't touch paint, it won't touch oil, grease. It will work on zinc plating, which is already on there, so if it's gold, or just a bright zinc or black zinc, whatever, it'll strip that right off. But it doesn't really work very well on chrome and then the others. So all I do, just keep recycling the grease going through. So just clean up all the parts. Or recyclable arsol, sorry. That's ready for the next bunch of screws or whatever I'm going to do. So there's still some rust and whatever in some of the screws. That's pretty much what they look like coming out. So I usually give them a good drying because I don't want the arsol contaminating the acid. So next, I'll show you how to do the acid dipping, which is pretty simple. Normally I would do this outside, but being winter time, I've had to move pretty much everything indoors, so you have to be very careful with acid, and I'll show you a couple things. This is all I have for doing the acid cleaning. It's just in the laundry tub. So, same group of parts. Just have a small container. Make sure none of the washers got stuck in the cloth. I've got a small fan running in here to evacuate the air to the outside. Now, working with acid, muriatic acid, it's a very strong thing. It can burn your throat a little bit if you breathe in some of the fumes. It's typically used for pools and stuff like that, but you want to have some good ventilation in the area. And the most fumes typically come off as soon as it starts eating into the coatings on the product. So usually what I'll do is I'll just pour some of it in there. Get a mask and some gloves when you're working with it. It just boils for a while. It actually works very quickly. Keep the container stored upright. Always get the cap back on it while you're waiting. When the fizzing stops, that's pretty much when the parts are fully stripped. Always wear some glasses, preferably a face shield if you're going to be working with this. So if it splashes, it's not going to get to you. And be prepared with old clothes that aren't going to matter too much. So that's about probably 3 or 4 minutes. Just have a funnel which I keep nearby. Pour most of the acid back into the container. And then the rest you can flush the pots with clean water. So leave it in water until you're ready to dry them off because it will corrode pretty quickly. You don't really need gloves at this point because you're just dealing with parts. So you don't want your hands to be really oily though because they're going to end up getting the parts quite dirty. So I sometimes keep a magnet around as well to just get some of those parts that might stick to or not come out very easily. So from there it's going to get a little bit noisy, but give everything a good drying. The higher strength fasteners tend to get a bit of a gray look on them like that after they've been dipped in the acid. That wheel plate, however, I like to get rid of that with a wire wheel on a grinder, just to make sure I get a good adhesion with the plating. So I'll show you those in a second. So literally a couple minutes on a wire wheel. Just take a little bit of that off. And that's about it. That's as farthest I go as far as polishing. I go straight into the dipping from there for plating. So we'll go through this right from the start. This is just spare room down in the basement that I'm using. These are the zinc sheets that I use. What I did is I bought a package of 10 of them on Amazon. It's like a 99.9% pure zinc. It's about 6 inches by about 8 thou thick. They last quite a while. I bought 10 sheets initially. I've already done one motorcycle. I'm on to my second. I've got 2 sheets. That's the 4th and 5th one. I've got 5 more sheets so after that. Now going from left to right, there's the electrolyte solution with the power supply that's used for the plating. Power supply was about 95 Canadian, I think, off of Amazon, so obviously the US price is going to be cheaper. The material that I have in here for the electrolyte was from Caswell. So let me talk a little bit about the what I started with. I went through, checked a lot of how to do DIY stuff online, and there's a mix between buying full kits from Caswell, which can be quite expensive, and also creating your own electrolyte. So it's just using like pickling vinegar, some salt, using some sort of sugar or something in there as well to try and make it bright. No matter what I tried, I even purchased the zinc brightener additive from Caswell and added it to that homemade electrolyte solution, and it didn't really work. This bottle here I think is like about $20 US or something like that. All of these bottles here are in the $20, $30, $40 range. The only thing that was a little bit more than that was the electrolyte, which was a bag plus a second part bottle, which was about 80 US dollars. So as far as the electrolyte, it needs a stirring once in a while. A lot of people were saying that you need to have extravagant measures to manage the electrolyte. It has stirrers in it, it has heaters and maintaining a temperature. Everything in here right now is a room temperature, like 70 Fahrenheit or 20 Celsius. When I was asking about how to get good quality plating, the responses ranged anywhere from, well, if the material doesn't have a good finish on it, you're not going to get a good finish, so you have to spend a lot of time polishing, so using buffing wheels, etc., and trying to get your fasteners looking as perfect as possible. And that's just not true. No matter how much I polished, I was always getting like a dull gray, and it even had almost a very, very fine sandpaper type of finish on it. And then what I would do with those is I would put them into a vibratory bowl, let those run for about 12 hours, and I would clean them up enough that I could get half decent results when I put the passivates on, whether it's a yellow passivate or the blue passivate, which is just a bright, or the black chromate they call it, black passivate. And after giving up on that, what I ended up doing was I moved over to the Caswell product, bought the powder, put it in, and my results were amazing right from the start. I had no problems whatsoever with it. There's also a lot of talk about how you have to be so accurate as far as calculating the number of amps that are being pushed into the product. I don't really find that to be the case. Once you give this a good stir, the suspended the powders or whatever that are suspended in there, they stay for quite a while, at least the 15 minutes that you plate. Give it a good stir again after that, then you're all set. So I just have a little container. These are all like 2-gallon containers. So everything goes into the acetone. This is just to remove any of the final grease that's on it. There's really nothing magical about this. I also keep a magnet here handy so I can get the small pieces back out. Try and keep the acetone covered as well. It evaporates really quick, and it's not the most pleasant stuff. Another thing people talk about is how you have to be so careful about your hands getting any sort of grease on the product. And yeah, you do need to be careful, but don't start freaking yourself out about it. I haven't really found that it's that big of a deal. Now, as far as wire, I just have a fairly fine gauge copper wire that I keep around. I've got a piece of din rail that I cut off. That's what I hang things from. So as far as screws, etc., all I do on these is I give them a quick little, just a quick little wind with the wire. And if that's hanging downwards a little bit, then it's going to stay on there. And that's going to be enough as well to conduct the current onto it. So those are hanging down a little bit so they're not going to fall off. So if you want to fast forward a bit, you can, but this is just going through the real amount of time that it takes to do this sort of thing. Every once in a while for the older wire as well, I run it over something that'll straighten it out a little bit and cleans off any of the crap that's on there from previous zinc plating, so you get a good connection. So again, just put the bolt over it like that. Not much to it. Screws. One quick little spin. Quick little spin, it's angling down. I just keep reusing these wires over and over again. So this spring, I'm just going to put a little knot through it. And then the other spring I'm going to hang off the bottom of that. Give it just a quick little twist. You're good. Other parts, quick little twist. What I found for the amperage as well is there's a lot of complicated little sheets on how to set the amperage, and based on the number of square inches or square centimeters or whatever you want to put on it. But I haven't really found that that's much needed. I've gone through just approximating what I think is there, and I've always had some really good results with this lately, so not a problem at all. Now, as far as washers, you can do your own little thing. What I found works well for washers, especially when you have a lot of smaller washers, instead of spending a lot of time on these. First thing you do is drop them. Just give it a little twist on the end. And then the next washer is what I've typically done. Seems to be about the quickest way of handling these. I just put them on. I give it a little jog in the wire. These washers are light, they're not going to bend the wire. And then I let them sit in that little jog. That's all I do for those. I just keep reusing this wire until it breaks. So for the dip, you have your positive cable coming off your power supply. It goes to the zinc electrodes. These are, I believe these are the anode. I don't really care too much to pay attention to that though. I just flip them upside down every once in a while so I use up whatever material's on there. So you don't want to have the alligator clip going into the solution, because otherwise it's going to be pulling material off the alligator clip, and that's going to be plating onto your part as well. I just have some small clamps. Keep it in just above the surface. This clamp here has another lead coming off which goes to the opposite side. And then the negative for the power supply goes on to the bar that hang the parts from. So because I just had my hands all over these, I just give them a quick little dip in the acetone. There's not really much to it. You just wrap the wire around. And every once in a while things fall off the wire. I'm not really too concerned about washers, whether or not they get perfect. I just set them off to the side for a moment, let the acetone evaporate off. Every once in a while it's not going to be perfect. You're going to have some wires that don't make a good connection and you just have to redo it, that's all. Give it a little bit of a stir. Turn on the power supply. What I've got there, that's probably about 1¼ amps. So I just set that. The best way to set them up is with amperage. A lot of videos will say to watch the bubbles that are forming on the product, and when you have just some small tiny bubbles being created, that's a good amperage setting. But the Caswell fluid is actually fairly opaque, and you can't really see through it to see the parts, so it pretty much has to just go by feel, or you can spend the time calculating the number of square inches surface area and calculate the amps by that, but I haven't found really big differences from one to the other. So, going across as far as the other chemicals that are on the table here, I have the rinse. So everything's done with distilled water. So I have a rinse over here for when it comes out of the electrolyte. Goes through that rinse. The acetone, which you've already seen. I have the blue. So I've got the blue chromate and the blue rinse right here. Again, it's just distilled water. The blue chromate doesn't make a lot of it. So what I done, I have a small container like that I keep the chromate in. That's all it makes, is about 1 quart or 1 liter of the solution from the bottle you buy. The yellow chromate, so this is the rinse for the yellow chromate, and then the yellow chromate below. That one is a very small bottle. It's very, very potent. I've only used a fairly small amount for that, and that creates the 1½ quarts or 1½ liters of solution in there. And then the black chromate is over here, so I've got the distilled water rinse, and I have the black chromate down below. That's 2 parts you have to mix together. It is these two. You have a part A and a part B, and they're mixed in. So that goes into 7 pints. So it's about 1½ liters or 1½ quarts or so. And what I found with the black is that it doesn't really come off of the parts very easily. So when you lift it out, you're going to carry a lot of it over to your rinse. So I keep some distilled water into just a little spray bottle, and it doesn't really matter. So as you're pulling parts out, you're pulling some of the material away, and some of the water is evaporating. So if you give it a few sprays with that, it just replenishes the water, and it more or less keeps it at about the same concentration. So I'll come back. These are going to be in there for 15 minutes, so we'll come back and pull them out and do the rest. So 15 minutes have passed. Shut the power supply off. This is just rinse water. The parts come out with a nice zinc coating on them. You don't have to worry about corrosion at this point, obviously, because they're already plated and nothing's really going to happen to them. The rinsing is pretty simple. You just don't want to contaminate the other baths later on. It's the key to keeping your solutions good for a long time, is you don't let the baths get cross-contaminated. There's the springs. So this is all raw zinc now. And the passivate, what I understand what it does is it will seal off the surface better, and that's what provides that long-term corrosion protection. Now these, that's an example of when it didn't plate. So those I'll just put back in for the next shot. Not really concerned about that. I don't want to spend all my time making sure everything's absolutely perfect when the redo is so simple. So these washers came out nice. That's the brake switch bracket. So I'll turn the camera over to the other tanks. Now these, so the first thing I'm going to do is these springs, because those were a yellow chromate, and So if I move the blue out of the way, this is all I do. I just move the jugs around for, you know, whatever I'm doing at the time. So these are the springs prior, and this is the amount of time you need in the yellow chromate. It's pretty quick. And similarly, I keep the distilled water here in a spray bottle so I can just give them a little bit of spray. So that's pretty much all you need. You can go for a darker yellow if you want to leave them in longer, but I just like to keep the solution in the tanks. Bit of a rinse, and that's what you get. Yellow chromate needs time to dry, so you want to leave those for the next day and not handle them too quickly. So these I'm going with the black, so I'll do those in a moment. This plate as well was black, so that one's going to be held onto for a moment. These pieces here, these were just, this one screw is black, so I'm going to put that in later with the other black components. So that's it for the yellow. Close up the yellow. Onto the blue or bright. These pieces here, these were done in bright. These take a little longer, they're about 20 or 30 seconds. Normally before I do something like this, I'll take a photo so I remember exactly which screws were which color, but I'm not particularly concerned with these because they're all part of the brake part for the foot stand on the left, sorry, on the right side of the bike. I remember a few things were black, but I'm not really that concerned about them being the right color or not. So. Once these come out, that's the bright zinc, the blue they call it. So we'll do a few black pieces, and then you can see how quickly that goes. So blue chromate, rinse. And this is the black and the black rinse. So, do a couple of these at the same time here. This small screw is also black. These need about 15 seconds or so. And depending on how black you want to go, you can leave them longer. Sometimes they'll have just like a nice little bit of a translucent black to them. You don't want to go too far because I believe this is acidic, and what it's doing is it's eating into the zinc. And I like to just spray off the parts coming out of this dip, so I keep the chemicals in the tank rather than having to do a big rinse change later on with putting lots of water into it. So I'll rinse them off a little bit, give them a bit of a spray. And then you have the black components. So take a look at this bracket here. If you're going for that black look that has like a black oxide finish, it's not going to happen with this. This is going to give you sort of a shiny black, which is very similar to what you see on a lot of the fasteners, which are on the Honda motorcycles, especially screws on the motor casings and such. So you end up with something that looks like that. And screws as well. So that looks pretty darn good. So, sorry if the video quality is not the best, and my narration isn't the best. It's the first time doing something like this, but just wanted to share a little bit of the information, what I've learned. So, go the route with the Caswell chemicals. Don't try and do any homemade brews or anything like that. You can if you want to. I found that it didn't really work out for me, and you're better off to go with those. It's actually pretty cheap stuff. I don't really recommend going with the Caswell full kit because I don't think that really provides a lot of benefit. They charge quite a bit for the power supply. You can get that cheap online, and you're going to get good results. It's just a bunch of homemade stuff. The buckets were a few dollars each at a local hardware supplier in Canada. Really not much more than that. So good luck with your plating. I hope everything goes well, and see more pictures of motorcycles. Thanks.